One of the biggest mistakes new salespeople make is wasting time with people who don't have money. And look, if you work for a nonprofit and you help people who don't have money, awesome, you're in a great spot. But if you run a business that sells high ticket products, the worst thing you could do is end up spending 30, 40, or even 60 minutes at a time with people who will never be able to afford what you have to offer. And so the key to understand, especially if you're new, is there are a few things that you can do that will help you to identify very early on in the call whether or not somebody can afford your product or service and set you up that you're not spending extended amounts of time with them. But at the same time, you're setting them up that if they do end up being successful and they do end up having the money later on, they remember you're one of the people who helped them. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jeremy Sandell. I've worked in sales for 15 years. The last 3 years, I was Ty Lopez's top closer selling his $100,000 coaching product. And I want to share with you guys the things that I wish somebody had shared with me early on. Unfortunately, a lot of sales training that you guys can find on YouTube and buying it and all these books and everything else, most of it doesn't actually help you. It just turns you into a robot that repeats things other people said, which doesn't work for high ticket sales anyways. So when it comes to people who don't have money, there's a few telltale signs that usually indicate, without you having to directly ask them how much money do you have, that they don't have much. Now, one thing is when you start the call with somebody and you ask them about their goals, if their goal sounds unreasonable, like as an example, I had a sales call a few years ago and I remember this one, it stuck out because it was so blatantly insane to me that I was like, I can't believe this guy didn't laugh after he said this. I said, hey, what's the big goal with the business in the next 12 months? And he said, well, we want to scale to $10 million in revenue per month. I said, got it. Okay. Well, where are you guys at right now? He's like, oh, we're doing about $2,000 a month. And I was like dumbfounded. I was like, is this guy insane? Like, does he not understand how this stuff works? Like, that's going to take time. 99.99999% of businesses will never do $10 million a month. And most businesses will struggle to even get to $10 million a year. People who don't have money tend to say things that are unrealistic because they haven't been through enough time to understand how long it usually takes to build up a business. And if you just look at statistics, it's really obvious. Most businesses do not make a single dollar in the first 3 years of profit. Now, the owner might pay themselves and pay their bills, but they're not actually profiting in the sense that there's money left at the end of the month. There's usually more month left at the end of the money, if anything. And so when you're asking questions, if you start noticing, hey, this person has unrealistic goals or unrealistic expectations, or you start noticing that they can't clearly describe and define what they're trying to do. If you ask somebody about their business and they're like, well, and they kind of blabber on too much and you can tell it's really unclear to them what it is that they're selling, it's a clear indication that they're not actually doing that well. And by the way, it's fine. Smart business owners, by the way, create products that they can sell very quickly to those people for $100 to $1,000. And they have, people in other countries who are making, $50 to $100 per closed deal is a great thing. But if you're wanting to make a lot of money in sales, you have to be very fast to get off the phone when it comes to people who don't have money. And so those two things will save you a lot of time. Now, let's say you're talking to somebody and they're pretty sharp, and maybe in the future they will be very successful. It's still a good idea to spend about 10 minutes on the phone with them. And I want to tell you guys a story about this. Back in 2019, I had a guy I talked to on the phone. I was like, man, this guy's really sharp. He understood what he was doing in business. He had a game plan in place that was very logical, and it thought through like what could go wrong and how they could solve it and what they would need to do. I could tell from the way that he was talking that he was actually like doing the work, making a lot of sales calls, really working to build his book of business. And at the time, he was only making about $8,000 a month. Now, $8,000 a month with no employees is great because his expenses are basically zero. He might spend a couple $100 a month on software. So most of his profit, or most of his revenue was profit for him. So I did something very interesting on that call. I still ended it at about 11 minutes. I remember looking at my phone when I ended the call to make sure that I hadn't wasted a lot of time. But what I did was I gave him something for free. I told him that he should come to an upcoming event we were doing that was going to be $1,000 per ticket, which he said he could not afford at the time. And then the third thing was I told him, I said, hey, let's stay in touch, man. Like, I can tell you're really sharp. I like being around smart people, especially when they're ambitious and they're willing to put the work in. Let me just text you. Let's stay in touch. I barely talked to him for a couple years. This is 2019. So you guys remember the pandemic happened basically 2020, 2021. And at that time, Ty had asked me to take over an e-commerce company that was growing insanity level fast, like 0 to 7 figures a month, really fast. And so we kind of lost touch, but I still had the guy's number. Now, the interesting thing that happened was around 2022, 2023, when Ty asked me if I wanted to take over doing high ticket sales for him. And I said, well, what's high ticket? Like, how much is that? He's like, well, how would you like to sell 100 grand? I was like, I'd like that. That sounds fun. That guy had scaled his company from $8,000 a month all the way up to about $120,000 a month. And guess what ended up happening? He ended up going into the $100,000 coaching program. So even though it was a short call, he remembered that I was nice to him. He remembered that I did something to try to help him, even though he wasn't in a place to even spend $1,000. And that I told him, hey, I want to stay in touch. And I complimented him. And I was honest. I wasn't just saying, oh, you're a sharp guy because, I thought maybe later on I could get a deal out of him. I was just being an honest, genuine person. And so in your own companies, if you're a business owner or even if you're just a sales guy, you should be thinking about what are some free things I can create that would take very little time, that are very easy to give. Maybe it's a little mini course, maybe it's a PDF, maybe it's some kind of guide or some kind of like note workbook that they can work through on their own. What are some little things that you can make that you can give value to people to help them? And also, what are some low ticket things maybe you can make for like $100 to like a couple $100 where you can help people to go from, let's say, making 100 grand a year to like $500,000 a year in their business, or go from being 50 pounds overweight to being 30 pounds overweight, or go from having the worst god awful verge of divorce relationship to at least not going to get divorced this month. Like, what are some little things? Because what happens is a lot of sales is made in the follow-up. Part of the reason why I was one of the top closers for Ty, maybe of all time, I don't know. I've only been with him at that point for about 6 years, but at least for that time period, I was his top guy. And the only reason why was because I always put people first. And secondly, I never stopped following up. Unless somebody told me, hey man, I don't want anything from you guys, lose my number, go to hell, something like that, I just kept following up. And if I found something that I thought would help them, I would send it to them. If I came across an interesting article, I would shoot it out. And so the interesting thing is, if you're talking to somebody who seems like in the future they will be a good fit for a high ticket product, you still shouldn't spend a lot of time on them right now. But you should take the 2 or 3 minutes it takes to just say, hey, I think if you do these couple of things, it's really going to help you out. And let me send you this thing. Usually we charge like $50. I'll send it to you for free. Don't even worry about it. I'd recommend you go through this because it'll really help you with XYZ problem in the meantime. And let's just stay in touch. Like, I'll text you from my personal number. Feel free to just reach out if there's anything you need help with or have questions on. And I like being around sharp people. I like being around nice people. I like being around whatever kind of people they are. And I'd just love to, be able to stay in touch with you and then move on. And the reason why I say 10 or 11 minutes is, and I would recommend you guys all do this, buy a stopwatch. I bought a stopwatch in 2019 on Amazon for about $4. Since I had Amazon Prime, I didn't pay for shipping. It's $4 even. And I timed my calls and I figured out in 8 minutes, I could find every single thing I needed to find, whether or not I could make a sale and whether or not they could afford to buy a product or an offer that I had. And if they couldn't, within 2 or 3 minutes, I could get myself off of that call. Whether that was just saying, hey, I think what you need to work on is this. And until then, like, this won't really work because it's, $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever. But like, do this, really focus, just put the work in, keep going at it. If you just don't give up, eventually things are going to start to click for you. And then you just hop off the phone, because the thing is, in any given day, it's not just the time. See, a lot of people think, oh, I've got 10 hours that I can make phone calls. It's not just the time. It's also your energy. If you're highly focused on the person that you're speaking to, that is going to drain you. You are going to get to a point in the day where you are not nearly as effective as you were earlier on in the day. So you want to get through the people that don't have money as quickly as possible, so you're not wasting the energy that you're gonna need to stay sharp on the sales calls that actually matter. And for those of you that haven't done so yet, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the thumbs up button if you love this. If you hated it, leave a comment as to why you hated it. I'm open to, negative feedback. I don't mind. And if there's anything I can help you guys with, just post a comment down below. I answer those myself. My assistant doesn't know how to answer these questions. She's never done sales before. So I answer all those by myself, and I will help you guys in whatever way I can. And I'll see you all on the next video.